Got it.
Yeah, he fixed it.
Okay, now how do I get back to the first screen?
And simcha is the produce.
The crop, the
crop.
produce, yeah.
Produce.
If you want to make their voices louder, the top button on the
And so how do I get back to the page of the Gemara? Just 1 minute. Share, agent. There we go. Okay. Got it. Perfect.
Thank you, God.
Thank you.
Hey, be on standby. Don't go anywhere.
No, it's
No,
okay.
you're good. You're good. You're good.
Professional God does a professional job also from the next screen.
Stick around for the hour.
Okay. So we have two pshatim already in Yura. Either it's Milshon Hira, that it's like sort of teaching, that it teaches the people to prepare for the winter, or Milshon Marveh, that it saturates and it quenches the thirst of the earth. And now a third pshat in Yura would be Yura, like Rashi says, Yura bechetz. When someone shoots an arrow, it's called a Yura, like when someone shoots, is Yuriya. Sheyure benachas, that it Rashi has two pshatim. One is that it goes in a straight line, like Yure, and then this Yure would be like a lashon of shooting. Another pshat Rashi over here also has that Yure is a lashon of teaching, and just like when we teach someone, so you teach benachas, easygoing, so too the first rain doesn't come down very strong rain, but rather easy rain. So in this third pshat, there's two pirushim in Rashi, whether it means Yure as in teaching or Yura as in shooting. Since the first Yura was already teaching, it would be easier to say that over here the third pshat is something else, and this would mean sort of shooting. Sheyura, but then benachas is a little bit hard. Ve'enu yored bezaf. It doesn't come down furiously.
That's Rashi.
That's Rashi. So that's the lashon of Yura. Three pshatim in the lashon Yura. And the Gemara says, so all these, the Gemara says, maybe Yura means something else, and in fact, it means something not good. Yura could also mean that it sort of, I guess, it shoots it down, or like when something is removes. So maybe that's what Yura will mean over here also, that it takes off the peiros umashtifes azroim umashtifes heilonis, and it doesn't mean b'chal even a bracha. Actually, is bothered that the pasuk itself says that this is going on im shamo atishmu. So how could the Gemara have a havim in it that the Yura over here means something bad? She says the Gemara is just trying to zoom in to get for sure, the right shot in Yura. That it means taka bracha, one of the first three options that we had before. Talmudim malkush. Ma malkush is levracha, af Yura levracha. Just it says Yura malkush, sort of puts them together. So just like the malkush is lebracha, so the Yura also is lebracha, and it doesn't mean mashir as a peiros, rather it means one of the first three pshatim that we had over here in the Gemara. And the Gemara says, but how do you know that malkush is lebracha? O einoi malkush el shemapila sabatim umishaber asiyulonois. Mapila sabatim would also be malashon malkush. What was the pshat? Shemol v'kosha. What? Causes the houses to fall. But how would that be malkosh? So Rashi says mal as when someone takes something away, right? So it takes off the dvarim hakashim, the houses and the things that are built are like hard. And malkosh is that it removes the things that are built up. So that's malkosh, that it's not a bracha. Or in a malkosh ela shemapilas abatim u'mishaberas ha'ilonos u'males hasakoyim. Sakoyim is a kind of an arbe, of a locust. So males hasakoyim. Tamaloi ma yura. Ma yura lebracha, just like the yura is lebracha, af malkosh lebracha. And Gemara says this is sort of we started, how do we know Yura is Lebracha? Maybe it's the Klala. We said no, because Malkosh is Lebracha. How do we know Malkosh is Lebracha? Because Yura is Lebracha. But Yura Gufim Minolan, that's where we were starting from, that we didn't know that Yura was Lebracha. How do we know that Yura is Lebracha? Talmud Diksiv, Uvnei Tzion, it says by Yoel, that after there was a big Makas Arbe, and there was a Batzoires also. So then they davened, Uvnei Tzion, Gilu v'simchu b'Hashem aleikeichem, ki nosan lachem es hamura, litzdaka. Did I make a mistake with the pasuk? No. That's what it says. Ki nosan lachem es hamura litzdaka. He gave you the mura, the first rain, but Yored lachem geshem mura umalkosh barishon. So it says over here that the mura was litzdaka, was for a bracha. So that's how we know that Yura or mura, which is the same lashon as Yura, is La Bracha, and Yura is going to be one of the three pshatim that we had. Either that it's Moires Tabrios to prepare for the winter, or it's Yura like Rove, it quenches and saturates the earth, or Yura Sheyored Benachas, either teaching or shooting.
What's
That's
his last
the
word?
Yura.
Moriv Malkush Barush.
Barishon by Yoel ben Pesuel. Very good. There was a Batzores, and it didn't rain. We're going to see later about it a little bit more. It didn't rain the entire winter. So Barishon, which means Chodesh Nisan, people already didn't have anything to eat. And then the Gemara
We learned
about it, right? And then they planted the first day.
It was
That we learned yesterday,
Miracle
no?
started to plant their seeds, and they said,
And-
how can we plant seeds? We're gonna starve to death. He said, no, don't worry about it.
Right.
Do what I tell you, and then so they did.
And then it's ready.
11 days.
So that's
Instead of
the
half a year.
that
You missed it. It was a big shear yesterday.
So
11 days to start getting food out of the ground.
well, it says
Instead
that
of
the
2.5
shore
feet.
when it was plowing, so it plowed on the way back, it was already starting to grow. It was already Al-Chazitz Minatel.
Crazy, man.
So that Vayoredachem Geshem Moire and the Malkush were both Berishon in the first month of Nisan. Okay. Now the Gemara is going to say, again, going on the pasuk of Yorel Malkush, and it's again going to explain that the Yore is really the first rain, and Malkush is at the end that fills up the Tvua, but at the end of the season. Tanu Rabbanan, Yore b'Mar Cheshvan. Yore is in the beginning of the rainy season, b'Mar Cheshvan. Umalkosh benisan. Atoime Yore b'Mar Cheshvan, Umalkosh benisan. Or Einoi, it's a little bit before, Yore b'Tishrei, Umalkosh b'Iyur. That even when it rains in Tishrei, it's already considered the Yore, it's considered the beginning of the rainy season that's good for the crop. And the Gemara seems to assume that it's not that way, that what rains in Tishrei is too early to be part of the rainy season. Yet it's in its time, and the correct time for the crop to grow is when it rains in Cheshvan, not in Tishrei. Malkosh, okay, Adkan, till here was Yore. Now the Gemara goes now to explain first the word of Malkush. In other words, just like we had before, the Gemara had three pshatim and what Yore means. So now the Gemara explains what does Malkush mean, and then we're going to get into the times. Malkush, two pshatim, three pshatim and Malkush two. Sorry, three pshatim. Omer av Nihiloi bar Idi Omer Shmuel, Dover Shemol Kashuseim Shal Yisrael. He said that mol means to remove, and before we had Havim of moving the Dvar Makoshim. So really, Malkush does mean that it removes the hard things, the stubbornness of Klal Yisrael, because when Klal Yisrael sees that it doesn't rain, so then they do tshuva and they daven for the rain. So sort of the rain is something that makes or forces Klal Yisrael to be choser b'tshuva, and that's why it's Malkush. It takes away the stubbornness of Klal Yisrael. Devei Rabbi Yishmael Tana, davar shememale tvua b'kashel. Mal is melashon mole. Koish is the koshi. In other words, the Malkush is already towards the end of the season when the stalks of the Tvua is already standing, and the last rain is just what gets the payros, what gets the produce to grow, that last filling it up. So that's why it's Malkush, is the thing that fills up the Tvua in the koshim.
Wait, this is not a regular Gemara. The Gemara, if I'm correct, it's other Gemaras. The Gemara's dashings every word in the pasuk, and I got it. Usually I got this like more aside. This is dashing the psukim down. Remember the other Gemaras like this?
I'm not sure. B'masnisatana davar sheyired ala melilois v'ala that it's Malkush because it comes down already on the things which are here in Moli. It does Malkush. It's not that it's removing and not that it's filling up, but Mal and Kosh. It goes down on melilois. Is the tvua we had in Beitza, that he takes some of the some of the grains and he's moilel, he rubs it or takes off moilel melilos, and also it comes down on the dvarim hakoshim. In other words, that when it rains, it's raining at a time that the tvua is already there and it's already standing, and the produce is already in the tvua. It already has the kernels or the grains there and the koshim, and it's the rain at the end of the season. So it's kind of interesting that there are three pshatim in Yore and three pshatim in Malkush.
You finished the three? I missed the second.
Okay, so we had Rav Nihilai bar Idi Yom Hashmul Dover Shemol Kashuseim Shal Yisrael. Number two is the Ve'er Bishmol Tana Dover Shememali Tvua B'Kasheho. Lashon Mole. And number 3 is b'masnisa tana davar sheyered ala melilois vala koshim. It could be that it's sort of a foreign word, Yura Malkush. Like it's.
Uh-huh.
I will check it
I
out.
have
Taka,
another
and that's
reason, because since Geshem is such a davar mashmulti, right? We
Mhm.
know what Gemara is like. So Mela Gemara dashes everything regarding Geshem.
could be. Also, it's a hard word, Yura Malkush. Like it doesn't really have a meaning. It's just a term. So maybe we want to understand. And the drushes over here sound a little bit rachov. It doesn't sound like mamish like the shad itself. Also.
And also just in our terminology, Yeridea.
Yeah, that's Moshe Hara, Torah.
Same.
Right. And that was the first round of the Gemara. That Yura means Shemureh Sabriyo is that it teaches the people. Correct. Okay, that was the Gemara that was darshaning the Yura Umalkush, the words what Yura Umalkush means. And now the Gemara is going to go into Sugya, which is going to tell us about the times of when the Yura comes. In other words, when the Yura is, when the first rain is considered. Now, there are different years. Some years it comes a little bit earlier and a little bit later.
This is Igor Shana Igor, so we got extra Adar. Things are different.
Very, very good. So it's interesting that the Gemara gives the dates over here that we're going to see all in the, in the Luach Yarchi, in Kislev or Cheshvan. And really, we know that the seasons aren't really totally in the lunar year; it's in the solar year. So, Elio Weber, he wanted to explain that this Gemara, which we're going to see, the Gemara is going to talk about some years it rains earlier, some years it rains later. It's not just like sometimes the years rain earlier or later, but let's say the year that's after the Shnat HaYibur will always be an early year, right? Because once we added already a month, so the next year Cheshvan is going to be early. Then there's going to be one middle year, and then the year of the Shnat HaYibur, it's always going to be a later year in the Hebrew months compared to that. It could be, it's always right this year, right? That's why we're already in Kislev, but it's only the 15th of November.
So it could be that it's
So
not.
therefore, the rains.
It's a little bit late, but it's
No,
not
no,
as
it's
late
not.
as you would as
As you
other
would
years,
expect,
right?
All the
Right.
halachas about tinius, when you should make tinius, it should make the Gemara should be mechalik if it's
Yeah.
True, correct.
Surely it does.
So we'll see it does. We'll see
It
it.
does?
Okay, you know what, maybe we'll see the Gemara, maybe.
Okay.
Well, you wanted maybe. I just wanted to be magdim that now we're going into a new sugya.
Yes,
Tanu
I'm
Rabbanan.
rushed. It's 1 o'clock. There's no 12 o'clock shifts. You go overtime.
We'll see. We'll take. Tanu Rabbanan.
Oh, for you.
Yore b'Mar Cheshvan, the name is the month of Mar Cheshvan, umalkosh b'Nisan. Atoime Yore b'Mar Cheshvan, oyeino yelo b'chodesh Kislev. Maybe Yore rains later on in the season b'chodesh Kislev. Tamaloime be'ito Yore umalkosh. Which is interesting why we have to have both. Ma malkosh be'ito af Yore be'ito. I'm not sure why the Gemara couldn't just say be'ito Yore. It says that the Yore is also be'ito. Why does the Gemara have to say be'ito Yore o malkosh? Ma malkosh be'ito af Yore be'ito. I'm not sure. Tanya Idach. Another brayse. Yore b'Mar Cheshvan o malkosh b'Nisan. Divrei Rabbi Meir. V'chachamim oimrim. No, the rain of Cheshvan, that's very early. Yore, even the first rain, is b'Kislev. It's not as early as Cheshvan, it's a little bit later. It's in Kislev. Man Chachamim, who are these Chachamim that say that Yore, that the first rain of the season is supposed to be in Kislev and not in Cheshvan? Not in Cheshvan. Omar Rav Chisda Rabbi Yosi. In the Brayso, we're going to see now 3 shitas of when it's supposed to rain. And Rabbi Yosi, he's of the opinion that the rain is supposed to, or the Yore is the later rain, and it goes into Chodesh Kislev and not in Chodesh Cheshvan. And now the Tanya, we're going to have a Brayso over here with 3 shitas. And each one of the Tanoim are going to have 3 zmanim. Early, middle, Benoni, and a late. The Tanya. Ezehi Ravi Rishona. Thank you very much. What's considered the Ravi Rishona, the early, what's the first rain of the season? Habechiro, Moshon Bechor. When it comes early, Beshlosha B'Mar Cheshvan, Gimel Cheshvan. Benonis, Beshiva Boy. Average, is Beshiva Boy, the 7th of Mar Cheshvan. Afelo, ki afilo Yiseino means the later one. Beshiva also boy. Divrei Rabbi Meir. So Rabbi Meir has Gimel b'Cheshvan, Zayin Cheshvan, and Yud Zayin Cheshvan. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, everything is moved a little bit later. Beshiva, the Bechira, the early one. In other words, the earlier rain is seventh day of Cheshvan. B'Yud Zayin, sometimes it's B'Yud Zayin, u'Be'eser Mushleisha, and sometimes Chav Gimel Cheshvan. B'Yoysi Yomer, the third sheet that we have now, the early one is B'Yud Zayin, and then the average, the Beinonis, is Be'eser V'Shleisha of Cheshvan, and the later is Be'Rosh Chodesh Kislev. So there were three sheetas over here, and according to Rabbi Yossi, the Yura, even the first rain, can sometimes come up to Rosh Chodesh Kislev. V'chein hori Rabbi Yossi yomer, ein hayachidim misanim. We're soon going to see that when it doesn't rain, so first there's a tinus of yachidim, that means that only the chashur people are going to see the rabbanon on misane, and if it gets even later and there's no rain, then Beis Din makes a gzeira on the whole tzibur to be misane, to fast. But the first fast is the yachidim. So he says even the yachidim don't fast achi yagia Rosh Chodesh Kislev, because according to Rabbi Yossi, since sometimes it gets late afilos until the time of Rosh Chodesh Kislev, so that's why they don't fast until only if it doesn't rain until Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Omar Av Chizda halacha ke Rabbi Yossi. That's what it says in our girsa. Halacha ke Rabbi Yossi. In other words, that the zmanim of rain is Yud Zayin b'Cheshvan, the early one. The average is Chav Gimel b'Cheshvan, and the later is Aleph Kislev. Now, Amemar Masni lahad Rav Chizda. He said this same member of Rav Chizda that we had over here. Omar Av Chizda halacha ke Rabbi Yossi. Amemar said it b'Hailish now, in a little bit of a different. It says in the Mishnah, we're going to see. We didn't learn it yet, right? No. Up until now, we spoke about when you mazkir esak shamim. Azkar as geshamim is to say mashav aruach umor.
It says
Bahalish, no. You're right.
Meaning in this language.
In this language, in the following language, in the following term, yeah. Now he brings the Mishnah, which the Gemara now puts in, and it might have nafkamina also to the halacha what we do. Up until now, we were talking about when you are mazkir geshamim. Maskar geshamim is in the second bracha of Tchis Amisim that we say mashav aruach umered hageshem. There is also she'elas geshamim. She'elas geshamim means to actually request the rain, which is in Baruch Aleinu when we say this, right? The same talumot al-bracha. So the Gemara soon on the Yudam and Aleph is going to be a Mishnah with two shittas. We had already ein shoyalin es hageshamim ela samuch geshamim. The asking for rain, the requesting rain, is only closer to the time of the geshamim. And the Mishnah over there has two shittas when we start asking for rain. The Tanna Kama says begimel b'mar cheshvan shoyalin es hageshamim, the third day of cheshvan. That's when we start asking for rain. And Gamliel omer b'shiva boy. The Mishnah over there has a reason tesvav yemach achag, but over here it doesn't bring it, does it? No. Gamliel says the seventh day of cheshvan is when we start requesting rain. Omar Rav Chizda, halacha kerabon Gamliel. The halacha is like Rabban Gamliel, that we only start requesting rain later on in the season, not like the early, not like the Tanna Kama that says begimel cheshvan, but rather like Rabban Gamliel that says bezayin cheshvan. And according to the girsa that we just said, just like we had Rav Chizda that said that the halacha is like Rav Yossi, that the rain comes later on in the season, and that's why we don't fast until Rosh Chodesh Kislev. So too, we only start asking for rain like the mandama that's later in the season. In other words, Shiva boy.
Rashi, the difference between the third and the seventh.
4 days. Rashi has an interesting gersa. When we said before, Amr Rav Chizda halacha ke Rav Yossi, we had three tanoim, right? There was Rameir, who was the earliest. We had the Yehuda, which was sort of middle, and then we had the Rav Yossi, which was late. So Rashi has Amr Rav Chizda not halacha ke Rav Yossi, but rather halacha ke Rabbi Yehuda. Now, what did Rabbi Yehuda say? Rabbi Yehuda said that the 3 times of rain is b'zayin cheshvan, b'yud zayin cheshvan, and b'chav gimel cheshvan. So if the halacha would be like Rabbi Yehuda, that zayin cheshvan is the earliest of the Yoreh, so that's why b'zayin cheshvan is when we start asking for the rain. So the Gemara over here puts in the Mishnah that we had of when to start asking for rain, together with the season of rain, of when the Tkuf of Kshamim is, whether it's Rabbi Yossi or whether it's Rabbi Yehuda. And this is different than the Gemaras that we had earlier. Let me just finish the sugya and then we'll talk about it in a second. No, I can already talk about it here. We had a Gemara that actually it starts already with the Mishnah. The Gemara over here seems to say that what would be the reason of Gamliel to start asking of Kshamim, B'Zayin B'Cheshvan? Because B'Zayin Cheshvan is when the Tkufa of the Kshamim starts. Either according to Rabbi Yehuda, that's Mamish with their first time of Revir Rishayna, or just that's when the Tkufa of rain starts. The truth is that in the Mishnah, it explains Rabbi Gamliel a little bit differently. It says that the reason why we would start B'Zayin B'Cheshvan is because of the Oilei Ragolim, that they should be able to get home in time before the rainy season starts. And we also had a sugya two blocks before that said that maybe when there are no Oilei Ragolim, then we should start asking for rain, the same Talamot Bracha, right after Sukkot. And that was the Maskana of the Gemara and the Avdal Ramar Aleph. Rabbi Yochanan says that in a time when there's no Oilei Ragolim, we would start Sheilas Geshamim right after Shmini Atzeres. And it seems that will be the Maskana of the Gemara over there, to start Sheilas Geshamim right after Shmini Atzeres. We know that today we don't start. We start Sheilas Geshamim only with Zayin Cheshvan, and not right after Shmini Atzeres. And the Rishonim talk about why. And there are two reasons given. One, probably you learned in the Dalet Amar Beis, some Rishonim say that there were Oilei Ragolim even after the Chorban Beis Hamikdash. There still are people coming to Yerushalayim, and it's for them that we wait and we don't stop to ask for rain until Zayin B'Cheshvan. That's one Mahalach in the Rishonim with those sugyas. The Gemara that we're learning over here on Davav is telling us that the asking for rain really goes together with when the rainy season starts. And it doesn't put it together not with Oilei Ragolim and not with just because the Yoreh begins on Zayin B'Cheshvan. That's why we start Sheilas Geshamim B'Zayin Cheshvan. And some Rishonim explain our minute that we start B'Zayin B'Cheshvan even today. I'll read the Gemara over here. I'm going to see it in a second. Now the Gemara continues. Kaman Ozla, we had three sheets in Tanoim. So Kaman Ozla Hodetanya. Omar ben Shimon Gamliel. Shimon Gamliel says, Geshamim Shiyodu Shiva Yomim Ze'achazeh. When there's a consecutive rain for 7 days, at the Moinim Bem Revia Rishoina Ushniya. And then the Gersa should be Ushniya Ushlishes. In other words, 7 days consecutive rain will give you, that it will encompass the Revia Rishoina and the Shniya. And sometimes 7 days will give you the Revia Shniya and the Shlishes. Who could it be? Keman Kerabioisi. Not sure what enough. But the Revia Rishoina we'll see soon. This thing of 7 days.
No, what's enough to mean? You want to know if the rains from Revir Rishon or Revir Shnia.
Oh, because we'll see soon that there are times which are told you Revir Rishon and Revir Shnia and Shlishis, they can have enough Kaminas and Halacha. So, Kaman Kereb Yoisi. Why according to Rabbi Yosi? According to Rabbi Yosi, let's say it starts raining Yud Zayin Cheshvan. It rains for 7 days. So the first day will be Yud Zayin Cheshvan. The last day will be Chav Gimel Cheshvan. So you'll have Revir Rishon and Shnia. If it'll start raining on Chav Gimel Cheshvan and it'll rain for 7 days, you'll hit Rosh Chodesh Kislev. So when it rains for 7 days, so you'll have Revir Shnia and Revir Shlishis. According to all the other Tanoim, 7 days won't give you the first and second or the second and third, because let's say according to Rameir, so it's Gimel, Zayin, Yud Zayin. So Gimel and Zayin is only 4 days apart, and then Zayin to Yud Zayin is 10 days apart. So again, it's not things of 7. Rabbi Yehuda also, what's Rabbi Yehuda? Zayin, Yud Zayin, and Chav Gimel. So from Zayin to Yud Zayin is 10 days. So it's not in, how do you call it, like synchronous of 7. But according to Rabbi Yossi, it's exactly 7. It's 7 days from Rishona to Shnia, and 7 from Shnia to Shlishis. And this Reb Shimon Gamliel who says, Gesham Shiyodu Shiva Yomim Zeh Chazeh. So you can be able to have Revir Rishona Ushnia, and then the show to be Ushnia Ushlishis, Keman Rabbi Yossi. And again, Omar Avchizah Halacha Rabbi Yossi, which we said, according to Rashi, the Gersa would be Halacha Rabbi Yehuda. Now the Gemara gets into Bavram, what you were saying, what's the nafkamina and Halacha? So the Gemara says, Bishloim Revir Rishona. We want to know when it is. Lishol. Over here the Gemara says Lishol. What does Lishol mean? She'elas Geshamim. The Gemara says Pshita, that the She'elas Geshamim, this is what I said before, I'm supposed to say it here, that She'elas Geshamim is Tolui and Revir Rishona. We forgot about Oilei Regalim. Whatever Revir Rishona is, that's when She'elas Geshamim starts. And Amela, we would understand that the Mishnah that says, the Tanakam, the Mishnah over there that says that you start being She'el with Gimel B'mar Cheshvan, that's like Rameir, right? That Revir Rishona is B'Gimel B'Cheshvan. We start in Gamliel that starts with Shiva Goy, so that'd be like Rabbi Huda, that the Revir Rishona is beyond.
To me, so according to this, you would start when it rains 7 days consecutive?
No, not the 7 days. The Revir Rishona, Shnia, and Shlishis. Not the 7 days you could get Revir Rishona and Shnia. Starts at the time of, when does Revir Rishona, when's it considered the first part of the rain? So we had 3 shitas, right? either Gimel b'Cheshvan, according to Rameir, according to Rabbi Yehuda was Zayin b'Mar Cheshvan, and according to Rabbi Yossi was Yud Zayin. So we'll say that the Tan of the Mishnah that says that Begimel b'Cheshvan Sheil Nesak Shamim, that's Rameir. The Gamliel that says B'Shiva Boy, it's not because of Eiler Regalim, but rather his sheet is because he's like Rabbi Yehuda, right? That the Rabbi Rishon is B'Zayin b'Cheshvan. And maybe according to Rabbi Yossi, you would start Sheilas Geshamim later. You know.
What's the Revi'ah? I'm missing something. When we talk about Revi'ah.
Okay, the first rain, the Yoira, comes in parts.
Okay.
In other words, there's a few rains that altogether consist of it. The Lashon Revi'ah, the Gemara is going to explain on the base, Revi'ah, right? What the Lashon Revi'ah is, but it's not a quarter. It's Lashon Revi'ah V'Nerva, and it comes in, I guess, in segments. Yeah, segments. A few parts that altogether form the Revi'ah Rishona. So whenever the first segment of the Yoira is, that's called Samachul Sham. That's when you should start being Shoyel Esak Shaman.
Basically, we say the implementation.
Right, putting into the karka. Yeah, that's what the Gemara is going to explain on the base, what the Lashon Revi'ah is. Yes. Correct. Yeah, I want to see how they translate it. But yeah.
I see. Revi'ah Rishona Lishol, Shlishit Litanot, Shni'a Lamad.
Penetrates, rovea the ground. Right.
That word.
Right. So
Roga,
sorry.
An action between two entities.
So we were all talking about Yura, and Yura has three segments, or earlier, middle, and a late one. Okay. So Bishlam Revi'ah Rishona, we want to know when the Revi'ah Rishona. In other words, why did Tanoim talk about this? This is what you were asking. Why did Tanoim talk about when the Revi'ah Rishona is? Okay. Because we want to know when to be Shoyel Esak Shamim. Shlishis Le'esamis. It means that if it doesn't rain the beginning of the Yura, we're not going to fast yet. We're only going to be Goyzer Tainis, only going to make the people have to fast for the Kshamim only at the third time, at the end of the review of the Yura, which is.
You make it a little higher than the. I guess that's
Upa, you're right. Shlishis Le'esamis. Shnia Lamai. But what difference does it make when the Revi'ah Shnia is? And now the Gemara is going to bring three nafkaminas the halacha of the Revi'ah Shnia. Again, Revi'ah Rishona is to Shoyel Esak Shamim, Revi'ah Shlishis is to be Shoyel Esak Shamim, and now we're going to talk about Revi'ah Shnia, what's the nafkamina. So Revi'ah Shnia Lamai, Omar Abzera L'Nedarim. It makes a difference in Hilchas Nedarim. The Tanam is a Mishnah, Hanoider Adag Shamim. 1 second.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can make it bigger.
Yeah, make it bigger, yeah. Like this, yeah. Okay. Hanoider Adag Shamim, as the Bach puts in, Ache Yuk Shamim. Let's say he says, I'm not going to Hanoider. Someone forbids himself Hanoah from a certain chayfet or from a certain person. He says, till when am I not going to have Hanoah from that person? Until the rain. Not when it starts raining, but till it's rainy, till the season of the rain comes. So Revi'ah Rishona, like when the first rain, he's not Asa yet. Only from Revi'ah Shnia, Mishayerdu, then it's only Asa. Ache Yug Shamim, it's also he's Asa Ache Tered Revi'ah Shnia. Once it goes down the Revi'ah Shnia, then it's already really considered the rainy season, and then the nether is over or begins, depending on what his nether was. Then it's called the rainy season. Rav Zvid Amar, another nafkamina, Lazeisim. It makes a nafkamina for the olives. We all know that it's matnas aniyim, that in a field people have to leave leket, shikha, peya, peretz, va'ilolois, and in the beginning only aniyim, only poor people are allowed to take it. But eventually, as the season goes on, it becomes hefker because all the aniyim who wanted to go already took it, and now it's just out in the field, and soon it's going to rain and just get rotten, get ruined. So then already anyone could go and take it. So there's a certain share when all people, even ashirim, Meimesai kol adam, the Mishnah in Peah talks about the Tanan, Meimesai kol adam mutarim beleket shikol bepeah. When can anyone not only go and take leket shikol bepeah that was originally left for the aniyim, but now anyone can go and take it. Mishayelchu hanamushois. Mishiyelchu hanemushos. Like a chikol peah, which is the tfuah that's on the floor, from where the nemushos go. The Gemara is going to, Gemara over here, or the one another place? The Gemara is going to soon explain what the lashon nemushos mean. Nemushos means sort of feeling. People who go very slowly and they manage, they could touch, they don't miss anything. So if they went and came back, so now already, and they didn't take it, so now whoever wants could already take it. The peret uva oilolos, which is from the grapes and from the zaysim. Mishiyelchu aniyim bakerem. I'm sorry, they're from the grapes. Mishiyelchu aniyim bakerem v'yavoyu. Rashi explains that the grapes is something very chashuv, very special. And that's why once people go in the kerem and come back, so they found whatever any regular person would want to take, and whatever is left now, so not only aniyim could take it, even anyone could come and take it. They become hefker. The zaysim, what they left over from zaysim is something that's harvested in the beginning of the winter already, late or late summer. So then the other shear is mishatere de v'yashnia. Once it's Yorei de v'yashnia, not the first rain, but already the second rain, then already anyone can go, not only aniyim can go and take what was left from the zaysim. So since we have this Mishnah Maseches Peah that tells us that Mehimasai kol adam mutarim to take zaysim from Revi Shnia. So someone comes to the Rav, when is the Revi Shnia? And that's why we have to know when the Revi Shnia is. And that's why we had the Tanoim that we're talking about. When the Revi Shnia is, but it's an nafkamina to the halacha of zaysim, of everyone taking zaysim. A third nafkamina, now the Gemara points in, we had the Mishnah that told us about the Nemushois, so we want to know who are the Nemushois. This is just to explain, right? We spoke about like a chikol peah, that anyone could take it. Mishiyelchu hanemushois, my Nemushois. Rabbi Yochanan Savi the Azli Atiga, the old people that walk on their sticks, and they're Melashim Nemushois that they feel very good. They feel, and they won't miss anything. And they won't miss anything. And once they went and came back, so now whatever the Anim wanted to take, they took, and now anyone could already take. Another pshat in Nemushois, Rish Lakish Amar Lakuti Basa Lakuti, the ones who go second round, or as Rashi says, sometimes someone will go, or Ani will go, and he'll have behind him just in case he misses something. So he has his son going behind him. If I miss something, you pick it up. And once the Lakuti Basa Lakuti, there's double, the backup people already win. So now whatever was left, anyone could already take. So that was already the second nafkamina of the Revi Shnia, right? The Revi Shnia was an nafkamina Nedorim, that the Gshamim is called for Achiyu Gshamim is called Revi Shnia, and that's when we're mutter bezeisim. The third nafkamina about Revi Shnia, Rav Papama, Kedei lahalich b'shvilei harashus. Domamar, ma'alchim kol odam b'shvilei harashus achetere Revi Shnia. Shvilei harashus is as follows. People have people who own fields. So when there's so Yeshua ben Nun, when he gave Eretz Yisrael, so he gave people, a chelik in Eretz Yisrael, but he made a tanai. One of the tanaim that he gave the people, he said it's going to be your field, but you have to let people make shortcuts, walk through your fields, but not in the winter when people's going in the fields is going to ruin the fields. But in the summer, when it's anyway dry and there's nothing really happening, so then people could go through the fields. So those shvilim are called shvilei harashus, because they're shvilim, they're path of rashus that Yeshua ben Nun gave permission to use them. So till when may one walk in these shvilei harashus? Only as long as it's the summer. Once it already rains and then his walking will ruin the crop, so then he can't walk anymore. So the Mishnah says, till when can one, till when may one walk in the Shvila Rashos? Achatered Revi Shnia. Fourth nafkamina about when Revi Shnia is. Nachman by Yitzchak Amar Levayer Perish Shvias. There are certain Perish Shvias one can take in, and anyone's allowed to eat Perish Shvias. But once there's no Perish Shvias left anymore in the fields, the halacha is once it's Kol Lachaya Basoda, then Kalei Behem Tochamin Abayis. You have to also either be mafkir, some Rishonim say, to make it hefker, or really to destroy, according to the Rambam, the Perish Shvias that he has with him. So when is the time of the biur Perish Shvias, of getting rid of Perish Shvias? The Tanan Amasai Nenem V'Sorfim B'Teven U'V'Kash Shal Shvias Achatere Deviya Shnia. Because once it rains already, a second rain, it's already raining a lot, so all the Teven and the Kash that's outside in the field gets ruined from the rain, and then the Chaya doesn't have. So then you also have to be Mavayir, the Teven V'Kash from inside. So these are four nafkaminas that we have. My time, I'm sorry. The Ksiv V'Labehemtecho the Lachaya Asher Ba'atzecho. Tia kol tvuas alechol, the things of Shemitah. Kol zman shechayo echelas basade ha'achel lebehemtecha v'abayis. Kolo, once it's finished, l'chayo min asode kalei lebehemtecha min abayis. Drop some more. Kalei lebehemtecha min abayis. So we had 4 nafkaminas about the Reviya Shniya. It's interesting. You want to start off. The first one is Lisha. We know what the nafkamina is. The third one is for Tainas. But the second one, what's the nafkamina for the second? And in the end, we have 4 nafkaminas. That's interesting. Okay. Now, we were speaking about Reviya. Till now, we had the Lashon Yoyreh and we had the Lashon Malkos. But now we want to know, what does Reviya mean? Omer Bavo, my Lashon Reviya, Davar Sheroivea es HaKarka. He says that it penetrates into the ground. Kidrav Yehuda Amarav. Sorry, Kidrav Yehuda, not Amarav. Kidrav Yehuda. The Amarav Yehuda, Mitro Balo Da'ara. The motor is sort of like the Baal, like the husband of the Karka, because it goes into the Karka and it makes the Karka grow. It makes the earth, the Adama, grow. So Mitro Balo Da'ara. Shenema Kikasha Yerid Hageshem V'Asheleg Min Hashamayim V'Shama Lo Yashuv. Hirvo es oretz v'hoylida v'etzmicha. It's marvia the oretz, and then the oretz is hoylida v'etzmicha, sort of gives birth. Also the Avodah is also Baal because v'omar abavo Reviya Rishona. When how much rain does it rain when it's already considered that it already rained the Reviya Rishona, the first part of the Yoreh? Kadesh Tered Bakarka Tefach. It goes into the karka. 1 tefach penetrates into the earth. 1 tefach. Shniya, k'dei lo guf pi chavis. When the earth really gets wet, gets damp, and now you can use the clay, sort of the adama, you can use it as clay to seal a bottle, a pi chavis. That's when it's called already Reviya Shniya. Now comes sort of a new Gemara a little bit. And it talks about, in the pasuk it says that when Klal Yisrael doesn't do Ratzon Hashem, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu stops the rain. Now I'm going to say that once it rains a certain amount, then already ein behem mishum va'otzar, meaning that even if it rains not as much as we would want it to rain, but it's already not part of the klala of va'otzar es hashamayim. So we're going to have different targets there. Let's see the first one. Omar Rav Chizda, Geshamim sheyordu kedei lo guf ben pi chavis, that it rained enough that it made the earth wet enough or mushy enough to be able to be lo guf pi chavis, to seal the bottle. So now that year already, it's not part of the klola of Otzar Es Hashamayim, and even if we would want more rain, but it's already not the klola of Otzar Es Hashamayim. Rav Chizda says, Yishamim shiyordu koidim v'otzar. If it rained, I guess 1 time or a little bit before the Zman of Kriya Shema, in other words, in the morning rain, which as we're saying now, it's considered a very good rain. Ein ben v'rishon v'otzar. Even if it only rained a little bit, it didn't rain so much, but if it rained in the good time, which is in the morning, koidim va'otzar, before this Zman Kriya Shema, then ein ben mishum va'otzar. It's already, that year is not part of the klola of va'otzar es hashamayim v'lo yiyamata. Omar Abaye, lo ya'amoran ela koidim va'otzar de urta. Before the va'otzar, before this Zman Kriya Shema of the night. In other words, when did it rain? Late afternoon. Aval koidim va'otzar de tzafra. But if it rains before Zman Kriya Shema of the morning, meaning early morning rain, that yesh ben mishum va'otzar. That's not good. That could still be that the year is a klal of a year, and it's yesh ben mishum va'otzar. Why? The Amar Rav Yehuda bar Yitzchak, Hana Anani de Tzafra, the clouds of the morning, lesbu meshasha, doesn't have any mamoshes. It doesn't have. There's nothing to it. Like sometimes in the morning it's like foggy, and then the sun comes up and it evaporates. It goes away. And he brings a pasuk. The ksiv, it says in the pasuk, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Klal Yisrael that you're not doing enough mitzvahs, you're not doing enough good deeds. Ma esalecha Ephraim. Your whole chesed, your good deed, is ka'anan boiker. It's like the morning clouds. So you see that the anan boiker is something that doesn't really have much to it. And that's why Abaye says that when we said that the rain, if it rains before the va'otzar, it's considered good rain, that's only before the va'otzar of urta. But the early morning rain is not so good. Amalei Rav Papa le Abaye. So Rav Papa tells Abaye, you said that the morning rain is no good. Ve'amri inchi, people say, the miftach bove mitra, if when you open the door, bab, like bab mitra, you see that it's rain. Bar chamora, Bar chamor means what we would call today the truck driver, the guy who drives the chamor from place to place and sells tfuah. Moich sakich, just take your pillow, v'goni, go to sleep. Why? Because you're not going to make any money by selling the tfuah, because there's going to be a big shefa and a big bracha. So you see that when it rains in the morning, it's considered a very big bracha. So why did you say that you bought the pasuk chazechem kanan boiker, that it's not, the morning rain is no good? Loikash, or the koter be'iva, or the koter ba'anani. If it's thick rain, thick clouds, then it's good. Then it's going to rain, and then the guy could go to sleep, the truck driver, because it's going to be a big bracha. But when it's just like a fog, not real clouds, even if it's a little bit rainy, that's chazechem kanan boiker, that's not good. So we already had two things which were ein ben mishum va'atzar, right? Geshamim shiyodu k'dei logav ben pichov is ein ben mishum va'atzar, and geshamim shiyodu koinim va'atzar. And now we're going to have a third one. V'amar Rav Chizda, geshamim shiyodu al miktzas medina, v'al miktzas medina lo yordu, ein ben mishum va'atzar. If it rains, it rains in certain areas of the country, and in certain areas it doesn't rain. So even though it's not enough, because the mice or it's not the it's not the best thing, because you would want it to rain all over. But once it rains already in certain areas, so it's already ein ben mishum va'atzar. The klol of va'atzar es hashamayim v'lo yiyeh motor is that there's a hunger. But over here, the places where it rained and over there will grow, they'll sell or they'll transport it even to the places where it doesn't rain. How could you say that if it rains on some of the Medina and in some places it doesn't rain? It says by the clothes, it says it's already going to be so late in the winter. It's going to be only shloisha chadashim l'koter, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take away the rain. I'm going to make it rain on one city. That over there when it says al ir achas amtir, al ir achas lo yamtir, it doesn't mean that only the ir shaloi amtir is the problem, but even the place which is amtir is a problem. When it rains in one place and it doesn't rain in another place, shtein leklala. So the one says no. Over there, loikasha hada ase tuba hada ase kademi boyele. When it rains, the klala is in one place. In some places it doesn't rain at all, and in some places they get the 100% of the rain goes in those areas. So then over there it also doesn't grow because it rains much too much. But if only certain places rain, certain places do not rain, and the places where it does rain, it rains kedimi boyele as it should, then it's not a klala. Amar Avashi dekenami diksir, by the klala it says timoter tehei makom motar. That's the rainy area. That's the klala. Shma mina. Now this Gemara is interesting because this Gemara says that when you have a whole country or a whole Medina, and Miktas Medina rains and Miktas Medina doesn't rain, so ein ben mishum va'atzar, because the places where it rained and it'll grow will sell to other places. So people, I'm not saying the psak, I'm just saying what I want to talk about. Whether today when it doesn't rain, these days, do we still make the tainas geshamim, and if it's still considered the klal of va'atzar? Because today the whole earth, the whole world, there's one Medina, and if it grows in one place and it doesn't grow in another place, you can transport from the places where it grows to the places in the world where it doesn't grow. So even though it costs money, and of course it might be a little bit more expensive, but there is enough that it shouldn't be a hunger. So if it rains, if it's a drought in one country, but not globally, maybe there's no tainas geshamim, because it's sort of like this Gemara of, what does it say? Miktas Medina, Miktas Medina lo yordu.
When it doesn't rain here, then they consider we don't care about what's going on.
You don't make times?
We're not sure, because let's say today it didn't rain in Eretz Yisrael, and besides a few people, they weren't goyzer tainas. It's already Chodesh Kislev even, and it didn't rain and they weren't goyzer tainas. And people say, why weren't they goyzer tainas? It says in the, so it's very possible that all these terutzim are after the fact terutzim. But Lamaisa, one of the things that are said is that because it's like Miktas Medina Yordu, Miktas Medina Lo Yordu, that you could from correct. So that's at least one of the tiniest that it's said. Again, I don't know, but medabrim on that. No, we'll go till the top of the Almond. Should I continue another 5 minutes? Okay, fine. Amar Abavo. The Gemara in Brachas talks says that when someone sees the first rain, it didn't rain the whole summer, and then the matar comes, people are so happy. You're supposed to make a bracha, a special bracha to see the rain. The Gemara talks about the bracha. The Gemara in brachas actually says that when someone has a field he himself, so then he makes a bracha tova mitiv. But someone who he himself does not have a field, so there's a special bracha that we say that we're going to see over here. And the continuation is actually nishmas. What we say in the bracha of nishmas, that's from Birchas HaGeshamim. So how much does it rain? If it rains just a little rain, then you don't make the bracha. How much does it rain until Me'imasai? How much rain comes down until Mevarchan al Haksham that you make the Birchas HaGeshamim? Mishiyetze chosan likras kala. So the chosan likras kala obviously is a metaphor to something of the rain. And what exactly does it mean, chosan likras kala? Rashi over here has two pshatim. I don't understand either of them 100%. Rashi says when you have two streets and it's streaming down the stream of one street and the stream of the other street and they meet and there's enough that it doesn't just trickle down but actually it comes, that's called chosan likras kala, and they meet and that's when it's enough rain to make the bracha. Another pshat Rashi says that, I'll read it inside, go down and read it inside. And, so I skipped the Gemara, no? I skipped the Gemara. We'll go back in a minute. 1 minute. Chosan likras kala shiyordu kol kach. Yeah, you see anything? Yeah. Shiyordu kol kach. Shekeshahatipa nofeles yoitza acheres, it goes into a puddle uboletes kenegdo mipi muri. I'm not sure exactly. Like sometimes when it rains and it falls into a puddle, it looks like there's a little bubble coming there. That's called chosan likras kala. Both pshatim are, I don't 100% understand why is that called chosan likras kala. But they both meet. It's a little. Probably just going to bring Rashi. Just 1 second. Right, that's mamash. Yeah. Right, so that's chosan likras kala according to that pshat and Rashi. Where was I? Yeah. Okay. So meimis ha'mevarchan al Geshamim, mishiyetze chosan likras kala. My mevarich. What's the bracha of the Geshamim? Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Moidim anachnu loch Hashem Elokeinu. Al kol tipa v'tipa shahirat alon. For every drop that you brought down for us. V'Rav Yochanan Mesayim ba'achi. Ilu finu malei shira kayom. Even if our mouth will be full of shira like the yam. Ul sheni nurina kamoin galon. V'chule. That's the continuation of that we say in the bracha of Nishmas. Ad al yazvunu rachamecha Hashem Elokeinu v'lo yazavunu chasadecha v'chule. Baruch, and then you finish off Baruch Roiv HaHoidois. Now, Roiv HaHoidois really means like Harbe. Harbe means the much, but Roiv can also have another meaning that doesn't mean the much, it means most of. Now, when you say most, you mean to say that there's a minority that's not included. The Gemara says, Roiv HaHoidois, only most of the Hoidois. V'loi kol HaHoidois. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have Roiv HaHoidois. It doesn't have a kol HaHoidois. Omarava, rather one should say, Ema Baruch El HaHoidois. Omar Papa Hilkoch, because this is Rav Papa many times to Shas that he'll take two and put them together. One man over here said, who was it? Rabbi Yochanan said that you should say Roiv HaHoidois. And Rava said, say El HaHoidois. Hilkoch Nimrinu. 1 second. Litervayu. You should say both. Nemrinu litervayu, El HaHoidois, v'Roiv HaHoidois. The Rambam says, Baruch El Roiv HaHoidois. That's how Shulchan Aruch also says. So, in other words, he incorporates both parts into the bracha itself. Now, that's the Chazak Shamim, and now the Gemara is going to go into a whole bunch of the Gemara about how great it is, the Yom HaGeshamim.
If you have another 2 minutes, you sometimes the Rav makes a sukkum on it.
I just want to go back because I skipped one Gemara. How do I get back? 1 minute. I want to get back because I skipped 2 lines by mistake. Here we go. Here, I skipped over here these 2 lines. I'm just going to say it now. Amar Rav Yehuda. Tava l'shata, it's good for the year. The teves are malta. That Chodesh Teves, which is after Kislev, is an almana. We just finished saying over here that sort of the rain is the husband, is the Baal of the Mitra. So if you say that Tevis is Almana, it means to say that in Tevis it doesn't rain much. So it's good for a year when Tevis is Almana, that means that it doesn't rain in Tevis. Why should it not rain in Chodesh Tevis? Ikede Amri Deloy Bari Tarbitzi. Tarbitzi, one pshat in Rashi is, two pshat in Rashi. One is the Rabbanan Shariftim Torah, the people who learn in yeshivas, Deloy Bari, that they're not beer, that they're not empty. When it rains too much, so then people can't travel at all. It's too wet, and it makes that people can't go from place to place. And the businesses, anyway, that's not when they're selling, because in an agricultural community, in the winter is when things are growing, and only in the summer do people go out to sell. But the chachamim that go to learn, that's when they learn in the winter, and they're not busy with the business. So if it rains too much in the winter, then they won't be able to learn. The Ikedi Amri, and some says the Shokol Shutfana. Shutfan is a kind of machlo or an arba. I wasn't sure if shidofin. Not sure exactly what shidofin is. Perhaps Atzro will help. Just 1 second. Sorry. Because in are affected by blight. Anyone else? Blight? Crops are not damaged by the winter unless they are wet. It's a certain machlo, a certain, I think, that comes to the tvua, on the produce, and it's more catches onto the produce when it's extremely wet, and that's why it's better that it shouldn't be too wet. Eini, how could they say that it's good when Teves doesn't rain? Va'amar Rav Chizda, Tava L'shato, it's good for a year. The Teves minavalto, it's mamish minuval, and it's dirty and it's muddy, so it should rain a lot in Teves. One says loy kasha, hadi asi mitra miikara, hadi loy asi mitra miikara. If it rained in the beginning of the winter, so then it's better that it shouldn't rain in Teves, that it shouldn't get too rainy. But if it didn't rain so much in Cheshvan and Kislev, then it's better when it does rain a lot in Teves. This is just, and then it goes into the Gemaras of Ein Ben Mishum V'Otzar. So he said to do a sikum. I'm going to try a little bit. The Gemara starts off with the pasuk of Yoire or Malkosh. The Gemara has 3 pshatim and the word Yoire, which sounds a little bit like a foreign word. Either it's Milshoin Torah, Milshoin Hayra, that it teaches the people to prepare for the winter, or it's Milshoin Marveh, that it saturates and it gives bracha to the earth, to the karka, to the ground. And the third shot was Yoire Benachas. We said perhaps it means a lashon of shooting, but it means the bracha. And the Gemara said that it means bracha because it says in the pasuk, Nasati lachem es hamoira litztoka. So it's for a bracha. And then there's one line of Gemara that goes into the Zmanim. We're going to say that soon. Then the Gemara talks about Malkosh. Why is Malkosh called Malkosh? And also we had 3 Malchim why Malkosh is called Malkosh. Either because it's Mal, Kasha takes away the hardness of Klal Yisrael and makes that they should be Choser B'tshuva. Or Mal, it's Moli, the Kashim, it's what fills up the stalks. Or a third shot was that it rains on the Mal, on the Melilois, on the rains, and on the Kashim. So 3 pshatim to Yoira, 3 pshatim to Malkish. Then the Gemara talks about when the Yoira is, and the Gemara says the Yoira, Bigadol, is in Cheshvan. There are 3 parts to the Yoira, but it's mostly in Cheshvan. Only according to Rabbi Yossi does it also have a little tip into Kislev, because we had 3 pshatim, Remeir, Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yossi, when the 3 segments of the Yoira is, either Gimel Mar Cheshvan, Zayin Mar Cheshvan, Chav Gimel Yud Zayin Mar Cheshvan, or Zayin, Yud Zayin, and Chav Gimel, or Yud Zayin, Mar Cheshvan, Chav Gimel, Mar Cheshvan, and Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Those were the 3 times. And the Gemara says that the beginning, the Revi'ah Rishona, is in Afkamina Lishol. And again, this Gemara is very different than the other sugyas that we had. This Gemara says that the time of She'ilas Geshanim is by Revi'ah Rishona, which would maybe be Gimel B'Cheshvan, like the Tanakama on Daf Yud, or Zayin B'Mar Cheshvan, according to Yehuda, which is the Shita from Gamliel on the Mishnah on Daf Yud, or maybe according to Rabbi Yossi, Yud Zayin B'Mar Cheshvan. The third Revi'ah, the end of the Yoira, is in Afkamina, that if it doesn't rain up until then, either Yud Zayin Chav Gimel or Rosh Chodesh Kislev, that's when we start fasting for the Geshamah. The middle of the rain, that's considered mamish, the rain itself, that's an Afkamina from a few halachas. We have 4 Afkaminas. For Nedarim, that Hanoider Ad HaGeshamim, or Achi Yu Geshamim, would mean the second rain, the Revi'ah Shniya. That's when people can already go and get the zaysim. Even not only aniyim but the ashirim could already go into the field to get the zaysim. That's when we stop walking in the shortcuts in the shvilei harashos in order not to ruin the other people's fields. And that's also when you have to take out the kash v'teven of shvius. That's the zman bir for the kash v'teven. So those were 4 nafkaminas in the time of Revi'ah Shniya. The Gemara then explained what the lashon Revi'ah is. That it's lashon davar sherevi'ah as a karka penetrates the karka. The Gemara then have 3 things that even though it's not perfect, it's not optimal, it's not the best year, but it's already not b'chlal the klala of otzaras hashamayim. One is if it rains enough that the earth is logov and pichavis, it becomes like muddy clay that the clay would be able to seal a barrel. So it's already ein ben mishum va'otzar. Also, if it rains in the good time, the Gemara says either before night, because then it doesn't get dried up in the heat of the sun, or in the early morning. The chasachem kanan boiker, that's just the clouds of the morning when it's very like foggy. But when it rains good in the morning before the heat of the day, I guess, that's also good. So then it's already not called va'otzar. And the third thing is, even if it doesn't rain in the entire Medina, if there are certain parts of the Medina that rains, and in those parts is enough to sustain the entire Medina, so even if not, it didn't rain everywhere, but it's already not considered the klala of va'otzar hashamayim v'lo yeh motar. Then the Gemara spoke about a bracha al akshamim. As Hashem should start raining, as according to the Chazayim, tonight, tomorrow.
Yes.
So there's a bracha that you make on the kshamim, the bracha of moedim anachnu loch, and the continuation of this mass. We spoke about the chasima, which is either baruch roiv oidois or kela oidois, and our Papa said you say them together according to the Rambam, and it's baruch atah Hashem el roiv haoidois. So that's the Gemara, and the Gemara starts right there. You call it Yom HaKshamim Kitchias HaMeisim. So Bez Hashem will be ready.
Where did you get some? Sorry.
We got to the top. The second line on the Zion on Omar Rabbi Avo.
Good.
So in case, hopefully the Rav will be here tomorrow, but just in case you'll be here 11 tomorrow. What time is it? Friday 11?
How do I stop
Rudy does a
this?
sikum.
You
I tried as much as I could. But, how do we stop this over?